Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. This feels so good to be able to get back into a normal rhythm of our interview with the writer's strike and the actor's strike and everything that was going on with that. I got an email like before the actor's strike was done, and it said, "Hey, would you want to interview Fred North?" So I look at Fred North and I go, "Oh my gosh, he is one of the greatest stunt pilots in Hollywood history." Looking at his credits, the directors, what they say about him. And then I read his book, Flying Sideways, the story of the world's most famous stunt pilot. And so many people endorse his book. Michael Bay, Charlize Theron, Gerard Butler. And he tells some stories about, those are the Charlize and Gerard. I don't know them that well. I shouldn't probably just call them by their first name. But I asked about those two because those are two of my favorites. So it's pretty cool to hear his stories about each one and how they were kind enough to, endorse his book by with some quotes for it, which I think is so cool. And yeah, Fred had a great story. The fact that at so many points of his life, he was so determined. He said he wasn't great at school. He was determined to get into flight school, and then boom. And then when he had to do something that seems impossible, when he has talked about the story about getting a license in Canada, having to get it within like weeks. And it usually takes 3 months, but he was so determined. You'll love that story. I love that one so much. And that was to fly and do some stunts on Fantastic Four, the first one that came out in the 2000s. And there's just so many points that's what he did. And setting the altitude record in a helicopter. I read that part of the story after we chatted. You'll hear in the interview because I didn't get to that story yet when I was reading the book a few weeks back. So exhilarating. Man. What he went through, put his body through to do that. Pretty amazing. So amazing. So it's Thanksgiving. If you're listening to this on Thanksgiving, if it's not Thanksgiving, if you're eating a turkey sandwich or whatever, we're thankful for you. Thanks so much for being listeners. If you're new here, please subscribe. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only and YouTube, and tell your friends, tell everyone. If you're listening to this on Thanksgiving, tell your uncle that always falls asleep early, but before he falls asleep, tell him about it. Or when he falls asleep, go into his phone and subscribe on like Spotify or Apple. That'd be pretty cool, right? He goes in the car tomorrow and he's like, whoa, who are these cool guys? Fred North, the world's most famous stunt pilot? Man, this is awesome. So without further ado, here is the world's most famous stunt pilot, Fred North. His book is Flying Sideways, once again, the story of the world's most famous stunt pilot. And you can buy it at his website, fred-north.com. I'll put it in the episode notes. Enjoy. But yeah, no, I think it's always so interesting because there's so many jobs that go into not only a movie, but into one scene. So I've longed to talk to somebody that does what you do. So this is going to be a lot of fun. But how did it all begin? So I know it was something that, from reading some of your book, like you were 8 years old. And at that point, you just knew this was for me. What was it? What was it about it? Just a feeling?
Well, first of all, I was not super good at school.
Yeah.
Didn't go to college, all that stuff. That was not for me. So I was more like an outdoor kind of person. At 8 years old, I was spending most of my time outside. I was not too much about, the teaching thing. I was going to school, of course, but when that helicopter came into my life, and you have to understand that in Africa, in a small village in West Africa, there's not much going on as far. There was no cell phone, no internet, no television, nothing of those. So you don't know what's going on in the world, in a sense. So when that helicopter came, above my head, and like a Mad Max aircraft, spaceship, it kind of traumatized me in a good way. Also the fact that they put me in that helicopter at 8 years old with no doors and no seat belts, and it's a 3-seaters. There's only 3 seats in the back. So even if you're sitting in the middle, there's only 1 seat on each side. And at 8 years old, no seat belts and no doors.
Oh my God.
So when he was making a turn, I thought I was going to fall. I was by myself in the back. So that's something is impossible to do nowadays, But so it stayed in my mind. And then, fast forward 15 years later, 12 years later, when I was, a grown up, and then I went to the army. That's when I had opportunities to work with helicopter and the whole thing came back, and then I decided that's what I want to do.
That's wild. Where are your parents from? Are they from France? Because they're expats, right?
Yes, yes, but they were teachers.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, French teachers, all that stuff. So that's why we were changing countries and go all over.
Amazing people, teachers. My wife's a teacher, so it's
Okay.
we would be nowhere without teachers, you know?
Yeah.
Really.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like? So obviously you were doing like the rally, you were doing those rally races. Like how was that transition? Did somebody approach you or was it something that you sought out?
So the rally, it's because the company that I was working for at the time, they were also doing, it's like the Barra race, but they do it on a bigger scale. Like instead to do it in one country, they cross like a continent, like Africa. And right now, they did it after Africa. They did it in South America. And now they are doing it in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East. So they change continent like that. So the race itself is like 2 weeks, but by the time you prep it and everything. So that company was doing that. So I got into this because of them. And pretty quickly, I in that organization, you have different jobs. You can be a film pilot for the TV network, but you can also be a medevac. You can be doing, search and rescue because so many people, they get lost. You can be part of the organization. You can work for the reporters and the VIP. So me, I wanted to do the filming aspect. So I was hired by the TV network, and then I just doing the filming. Now, that's not film work. That's TV,
Yeah.
which means there's a big difference there. For TV, they don't really care too much the way you're shooting like something. They want to make sure you get who's passing the finish line and who's winning, who's losing, and if there is an incident, and get that guy. So it's more like they need exactly some items that you need to shoot. The filming work, it's totally different. When you fly for a movie, the way you are flying translating the story to the audience, not necessarily what's happening on the ground. Because if you're shooting anything on its own, it doesn't tell the story because it's part of a 2 hours or 3 hours movie. So
Yeah.
the way if you do a 3 seconds rapid zoom in with the helicopter, you're going to bring energy to the audience. They're going to say, "Whoa," and you put like another music on top of that. It's like, what's going on? If you go super slow, it's a 45 seconds and there's a dialogue in the car. You know what I mean? It's a different way to fly between the TV work, the filming, and then the movie work. So it took me a while to do the transition between the two.
No, it's so amazing just your story from what I read so far. And again, your book is Flying Sideways: The Story of the World's Most Famous Stunt Pilot. It's so funny whenever you think about. Now, obviously, we can't time travel, but if you would have told yourself the career that you still have going, but that you've had so far, it's crazy. From like you just mentioned the story about being 8 years old in the helicopter, no doors, and you're thinking you're gonna fall out, to becoming a master of the craft.
It's a crazy. Yeah. Did you read the whole book or just
Not all of
parts?
it. Not all of it. I'm in the middle of it. I
Yeah.
just finished tax season and for
If
for
you
extensions.
in the back of the book, there is some QR codes. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, no, I watched some of those clips. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So you can watch the videos because it's pretty fun to be able to see it, while, explaining the story. For sure, I would have never envisioned any of that. All the craziness, all the stories, all the stuff I've been through. I mean, it's insane. And writing the book was like thinking, fuck, I mean, that's crazy what happened and everything that I've been through. And I mean, there's two reasons that we did the book. It's the first one is for my kids.
I
Do you
love
have
that. When
kids?
I read that, I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, as a parents, your kids only realize who you are from that moment. So if they're 15, 16 years old, that's when they know who you are, but they don't know how you got there. They only know from now what you're going to be doing. So they think that, yeah, you get an amazing job. Yeah, you're lucky, because they don't know all the crap you've been going through for the past 30 years. So the book was to explain to them, give them guidance and inspiration how we did it, so they know they have the same strength, the same energy. So that was kind of a legacy for them for that. And then the second part is for, because on my social media, I'm getting so many messages from pilots and stuff asking, how I can be a film pilot. How did I get there? And then I'm responding to them. But the book was to explain, it's not, I didn't have a goal because I didn't know that even that job existed as a film pilot for Hollywood. I didn't know. It was, I knew I wanted to do something out of this world, but I didn't know what it was. But I had just the energy to keep going and hardworking and not take no for an answer. And I know all those is just cliche sentences, but really, it's not because somebody says no that you have to stop. In the book, when I'm telling the story when I did the jet fighter selection school to be one of the jet fighter pilots for France back then, and when the guy after 1 week of doing all the selection and thinking I'm pretty good at it, the arrogant moment, he's going to tell me, yeah, you're amazing, all that stuff. And then he told me, you should never be a pilot. You'll be a terrible pilot. Get a fuck out, which is at 19 years old is like, you think the guy knows, So luckily for me, I didn't listen. But that's kind of it's kind of a life lesson, the book, but it's funny. You can talk about it because if you read half of it, but it's
no. I think it's so cool to have those experiences. Like, first of all, I think it's so great that you and your wife thought of that. Like, hey, let's write it for our kids, because I'm telling you, people usually don't talk shop with everyone. Like in your field, I'm sure, like when you're together with other stunt pilots or other just pilots in general, you could talk about these things. And I've talked to so many actors and stuff. And I talked to the special effects guy when I started this like 4 years ago. He never talked to his family about what he did. And he worked on some big movies in the 80s. And then he passed away like a year after I interviewed him. And his niece reached out to me and was like, oh, my uncle Tim passed away. His name was Tim Lawrence. And she goes, he never talked about any of this stuff. And we found your interview, and he never did interviews and stuff. So it's like, it's really hard to find somebody's story because it's really not out there, because you have this little piece of the puzzle in a movie. Even some actors, you don't know what they really do behind the scenes, like in their own life.
Started it and even my parents, I don't know how they made themselves. How did they become what they became? And it's even more special when your parents have a wild job.
Yeah.
But I think if the kids knew how the parents did it, it will give them strength or to not make the same mistake, or there will be a learning experience there. So the book was really a big part of that.
Yeah, and you're opening it up to your kids. Maybe some people don't want to say, like, you know what, I made a lot of mistakes before it worked out. So
a long list of mistakes.
Yeah. But that's so cool. So how did you so you're doing the rally for TV, and then like your first credits, I think in 1996, like some French films. Was that a transition you made saying, hey, I want to get into this? Or did somebody reached out to you to say like, hey, would you want to do this?
So while I was doing the rally race, there's a company in England called ACS, Aerial Camera System, and those guys were also doing TV event, but they were also doing the big American film based from London. So most of the American film that comes to Europe, they go through the UK because of the language and all the people. There's a lot of filming people crew over there back then. Now you find them everywhere in Europe. But so that company approached me and said, Fred, we want to open a company in France, ACS France. The one in the UK and one in France, and we want you to be part of it. And they wanted me to be the pilot for the filming work that we'll develop together. So it started a little bit like that. So I was doing a little bit of movie, like French movie, and not many American movie back then, because it's difficult to be approved by the studio. Like the studio is not going to work with somebody they don't know.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit for them to trust somebody. It's not like trusting you with money or what, is trusting you for safety and can you do this? Like, because studio will ask, sometimes the story, it's a crazy ask. They want me to do something completely stupid. So they want to make sure that the local pilot, he knows enough to say yes or no or how. So that's why it was hard for me to go and get big American movie. They were bringing the pilots from the US back then. And then slowly, Then I met one guy, his name is Larry Blanford, and he shot the first Top Gun as a cameraman. And then he was doing a job in Venezuela for a big movie. And then the helicopter that was based there was under a French registration. And the pilot license need to go with the registration. So even if you take a French helicopter and you take it to Venezuela, you cannot use a Venezuelan license. You need to use a French license.
Oh, wow.
Which is, if you think about it, like an American airline flight that goes from LA to France, the pilot is legally authorized to land in France with it because it goes with the registration, not the country. So long story short, I had to go to Venezuela to do the film. And that was my first film as a film pilot. And that's when that guy, Larry, explained to me there is a job in the US as a film pilot. There's only 4 or 5 guys in the world doing that. They are really expert in the craft. They have knowledge in camera lenses and script and the whole creative aspect of it. And he said, I had the skill to do it. And I didn't really understand exactly what he means by that. But that was a big shift.
Yeah.
So I decided to put all my energy, my effort, my money towards to try to get film work in Europe. And in 2002, I decided to move to Los Angeles.
Nice.
So it took me 2 years to do that move because I had company, wife and kids, and it's not something you do overnight. So it took 2 years. And then in 2004, I did the transfer. And from that, it took me 5 years of back and forth between France and the US, try to build, a bigger market in the US and then still working a little bit from Europe. So, it was something.
Yeah. Who was it? What was the movie you worked on? Or was there somebody that championed you? I know like Michael, you know what's so cool I think about your book besides your story is a lot of times people that are actors behind the scenes, they write books about their careers, but the endorsements you have, people love you, Fred. Yeah. Like that's so cool. All of them are great, but I love Gerard Butler, and just his thing, the way he wrote it was like a story, which was so cool, and it was so in depth, and it was so to hear the biggest action guy. There's only like a few guys right now that I would say that can rival like the action guys of the 80s, and he's definitely in there. When he talks about like excrement, like almost like pooping his pants because of the way you were above him in that helicopter.
Gerard is Jerry, as we call him. He was amazing because when I asked him, if he can do an endorsement, so I sent him the book, and then he read it, and then he was so like he spoke to me for 45 minutes, and I said, I cannot put 45 minutes of our conversation. I need something, and then but it was. He's so creative and he's so like rich in all the words and everything. He was, I love working with him. I had a blast, and he's such a good person. So yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
No, he's the best. I feel like he can do any movie. Like I love the movie Plane, but I feel like anybody in a movie that's just called Plane, it wouldn't work. But he just sells the story. He's that good no matter what. But I think that was pretty cool. All the endorsements you had. So back to my question. So what was the movie, or was it somebody that you worked with championed you and recommended you for other ones? Because you said how hard it was to get in.
So when I moved to Los Angeles, it's not because I'm moving that suddenly, the phone is going to ring.
Yeah.
Because nobody's waiting for you. And back then, my English was shit. I didn't know much about anything. So Larry Blanford, my friend that I flew for in Venezuela, he was the director of photography, so the cameraman. He had a movie called Fantastic Four, so the first one, but it was in Canada, in Vancouver, close to Vancouver, in Whistler. And then he said, Fred, there is no American pilot that I know that have a Canadian license, so they cannot fly there unless we take a ship from the US and bring it to Canada. But the production didn't want to do that because it's expensive. They wanted to use a local ship. So then he said, if you can get the Canadian license, so he said the job is in 2.5 months. If you can get the Canadian license, I can pitch you and get you on the show. Because instead to use a local Canadian pilot that they don't know, let's use that French guy. He has a Canadian license. He's my pilot. So that was the entry. And it was a complicated thing for me to do in less than 2 months. So first, the helicopter that I had they planned to use was in Whistler with a company called Blackcomb Aviation. And you need to have those guys to let you fly their machine. So they have to give their helicopter that costs $3 million to an unknown fucking foreigner.
Yeah.
You know. So why should we give our helicopter to that bloody French foreigner? So I called, and that's on me. It's not production that's going to do that for me. So I called the guy. His name was Steve, and old school guy. And I say, hey, Steve, I'm French. I'm a film pilot. I'm based in LA. Yalla yalla yalla, and I need to fly for a movie in Whistler. So can I fly your ship? And he said, but Fred, you don't even have a Canadian license. I said, forget the piece of paper for a second. Would you let me? And back at the time, I had 10,000 hours, which is a lot for a pilot. I said, I have 10,000 hours, perfect safety record, and I will treat your machine like if it was my own. Would you give me your machine? And he was old school. So he said, you know what, Fred? If you can get your license in 2 months from now, and he was convinced there was no way I was going to get it. If you can get your commercial license less than 2 months from now, and we do a little flight test together, if you're good to go, I'll give you the key of my machine. You can fly by yourself.
Wow.
I said, I have your word. He said, Fred, I'm old school. We handshake. You have my word. Hang up the phone. Then, I basically throw the whole cavalry thing. So I contacted a school in Montreal. Why in Montreal? It's because they speak French. So to me, it was easier because my English back then was not B- like today. It was like Z-, not good. So I was thinking, okay, I better go where they speak French. I didn't want to add that to the complicated, challenges. And I went there, and then the guy told me, Fred, it's 3 months to the commercial license. That's the fastest we can do. I said, that doesn't work for me. I need to have my paperwork in a month and a half so I can give it to them and I can do the paperwork. They said, there's no way. I said, the only way for you to do that is as a freelance, to do the written test, which is a 3 hours test, and you need like 95% of good answers.
Wow.
And then you need to do your flying test. And the Canadian license is not an easy one. And then you need to do your medical. And I said, okay, I'll do it as a freelance. But they said, we don't have anybody to teach you, because freelance, you do it on your own. And the books were maybe 3 feet up, like all pile of the books that you learned for the exams. And I'm thinking, I don't need to learn to be a pilot. I just need to do the exam. Mm-hmm. So then I asked those guys, who are your best 2 students that just finished the exam? He said, well, we have those 2 guys, 2 French guys. So I went to see them, and I said to the 2 guys, can I hire you for 10 days? We're going to work from 6 a.m. to midnight. I will rent a house. We'll work 10 days. You'll teach me for 10 days to pass the exam. I don't give a shit about the knowledge. I want to pass the exam. Because I'm already a pilot. I don't need to know the weather and the clouds. I don't know all that stuff. I need to pass the exam. Can we do that? They said, yes. We made a deal. For 10 days, we work 6 a.m. to midnight every day. Crazy, crazy for like 18 hours a day. Like stupid idiots. And after 10 days, I did my exam. And those 2 were like, a husband and the pregnant woman is going to deliver a baby. They were in the little room waiting for me to do my exam. They were so stressed out for me. I was stressed out, but they were even more stressed out for me. I passed the exam. Wow. I succeeded. And then I did my flight test. And you have to understand, back then at 10,000 hours, the guy giving me the flight test, maybe he had 1,000 hours.
I bet. Yeah.
But anyway, so I did all that stuff. So after 3 weeks, I had my paperwork.
Wow.
Which was amazing. And then I called Steve back. And I say, hey, Steve, I have my license. He said, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't believe you. I said, I have my fucking license. He said, send it to me. So back then it was a fax.
Yep.
You have to fax it. So, and I said, I have my, so I gave him the number on the license. He called Transport Canada, the local FAA, and he said, I cannot believe you have your license. So I said, you're not going to bail on me. You're going to give me a helicopter. He said, no, I have one word. You'll come. We'll do a test. And that's how I got Fantastic Four.
Oh my God. That's a movie right there, Fred. That is a
Yeah,
movie that somebody, dude, that's a dedication. 18 hours a day for 10 days. That's wild.
yeah, yeah.
And those were cool guys. Obviously, you paid them. Obviously, you paid those guys. But man, talk about those two guys. You
I
know?
didn't pay them a lot. I paid them whatever I could at the time, but
Oh, I'm
they
sure.
were they were super cool, and no dedication. And I was not going to let that go. Like I had to fight for it. And then I did Fantastic Four, and then the producers and everybody say, "Oh, that guy is great." And then from Fantastic Four, another one and another one and another one. Because the movie business is referral
That's what it
recommendation.
is for obviously on screen people. Everybody can watch that, but a lot of it is referral. Like I've talked to people that said like, especially for TV jobs, it's like you won't get any work, and then say you get like a guest spot on like Friends or Seinfeld, and then everybody else wants you because you were on that show, but that's the
Of
only way you can
course.
get hired. It's like one of those. It's one of those like weird things in life that it's like we want to hire you, but you need experience. But then people don't want to hire people with no experience. You know?
Yeah, but to me, people ask me, okay, often. So, what's the secret of succeeding as a young person? Like, you're 20 years old, and how can you succeed on any jobs? To me, I think the key element is to expose yourself to opportunities. So, what happens is people don't take a chance. Go meet somebody. Like, don't hesitate to knock the door at a CEO. Don't hesitate to go talk to somebody because you think he's not going to talk to you. Fuck that. Just go.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I was not going to stop because I was not going to get my license. Even though everything was saying on the website, you need 3 months, 90 days is the
Yeah.
minimum. I took the plane and I went and I said, how can I reduce that? And then, so just create opportunities for yourself. And then if you do that, well, some of them won't work, but one may work. And then you take that and you take that and you take that. And slowly by slowly, the balls start to roll. And then I think it's valid for any jobs.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Yeah, you gain experience. Even if you do something that doesn't work out, you'll learn why that didn't work out, and then you'll notice that the next time a situation that's similar comes up. Yeah, no, I totally agree.
I mean,
That's
it's basically what the internship is about. But internship, you expose yourself, but don't expose yourself to a coffee machine.
yeah,
Try to
yeah.
expose yourself. So, but it is part of the process. But I think the way it is explained to the kids, it's not clear. Like when we tell them you need an internship, it's basically to be exposed to the working world out there.
Yeah.
But I think we should explain it to them a little bit more. That's why in the book I'm trying to explain it to them. Create those opportunities, expose yourself, go explore. Even if it's a shit job, it doesn't matter. I remember at the beginning of my career, when I wanted to work for, I have 1,000 hours, and it's very hard as a pilot to go from 1,000 hours to like 2,500. And I was flying little helicopter, and I wanted to fly bigger helicopter. The company that had those bigger helicopter, the guy told me, the only way for you to really fly is we have a shuttle. It was in Paris, and they had a shuttle from the airport to the heliport, to the city by helicopter. It was 6 minutes. He said, if you go work at the airport counter and give guidance to the passengers, carry the suitcase, you can fly every day in the morning, 6 minutes, and 6 minutes at the end of the day. I did that for 6 months.
Wow.
I was telling people where the bathrooms were. I was carrying their suitcase. I was driving the van to take them to the helicopter. And every day I was doing my 12 minutes. But I showed dedication. I showed to that guy that I was professional. I was willing to do anything with a smile and a happy guy. But I said, after 6 months, I said, that's enough. Now you need to give me a chance, So, you have to pull the tooth. Like nobody's going to give it to you.
No, you're right. Nobody's ever going to be like, oh, here's this great opportunity. Here it is.
No,
Never,
no,
never.
it's not going to happen.
In life, especially, I think it's in all walks of life, but in Hollywood, I've interviewed probably like 200 people, like behind the scenes and in front. Like, it is luck to get that one opportunity. but then you have to like nail that opportunity, you know? Because sometimes
I
it's
don't
like
think
you get
it's
one
luck.
chance.
I don't think it's luck.
No?
Because because you create your luck.
No, you do
You
create
have to
it.
create your
Yeah.
luck. No, it's more a timing thing. Like you have,
Timing, yeah.
but it's a skill to manage timing. It's not just a coincidence. So you have to make sure it's the right time to go talk to someone, and then you have to go. But I mean, there's a little bit of luck. The luck aspect is more you in good health, and
Yeah.
you know,
No,
you're
right
lucky to
place,
be in
right time.
LA
It could be
versus
you walked in after somebody had a terrible audition, like an actress or an actor, and you
for
just
sure.
looked amazing and to them and they gave you that chance and you nailed it. Because there's just
Yeah.
sometimes you see people in TV and movies, they're like, oh man, remember that guy that starred in that movie that time and then it didn't do well and then he's like forgotten about.
Oh, but
But
most of the big actors, they went through like a
oh yeah.
fucking shit show. Yes, but what happened is you keep exposing yourself, and to a point, the timing will be right.
Yeah.
It just, but it's also the way you are introducing yourself. Like, it takes time to get the charisma, to get the confidence, to like, and not be an ego maniac as well, not to
Yeah.
be arrogant, because you can see if people they're nice and kind or arrogant. It's all that stuff I think that plays in your favor or not in your favor. But I think it's not just luck. I think you have to direct your own life, and the good things will come, but it may take time.
No, that's true.
For me, it took time.
No, totally. No, one. I don't know if you know the actor offhand. His name is William Sadler. Does that ring a bell? So his story when I talked to him, just like a quick anecdote, he was auditioning for. He was like in a few things in the '80s before he like was in Die Hard 2, but he auditioned for Tales from the Crypt, and his audition was for like a very small role. So he went into the office of Fox. He auditioned, and then at the end, he stopped at the door and he asked the girl that was the casting director. He goes, "Could I read for the executioner, which was like the main character in the first episode that ever aired?" And she's like, "Oh, well, we're trying kind of looking for people that are established actors that people know." And he goes, "All right, but I know I could do this." And she like took a beat and he walked out. And then she opened the window and yelled in the window to the parking lot and said, "Come back up." And then that's the role that changed his life. So just like
You
saying
see,
those
I mean,
few words changed his life.
yeah, but he created an
Oh, he
opportunity
did.
for
Yeah,
himself.
no, he stuck it out there. Yeah, no.
But I think that's so. That's why the book to me was also a reason we did that, because for me it's not a financial endeavor. You lose all the money you want with the book,
Mhm.
but it's just to have that and give it to age, that say 16 to 30 years old,
Yeah.
and it's all the life lesson that I've learned and what I had to go through and all that stuff. And I think that's the key of success, is to keep creating
Yeah,
those
no. Just
opportunities
those
for
two
yourself.
stories alone, Fred, they should make a movie about you. Because really, the fact that you did something that they said couldn't be done and you did in like record time, and then the fact that you did like those 12-minute flights a day and put on all the hard work just to get your hours up at that point and then say, okay, finally give me a shot. And I think what's even crazier, and it was probably when you were doing the transition to LA, you set the world record for the helicopter, the highest altitude.
Yeah.
How did that
Yeah.
how does that even come into your mind to think to beat that record?
It's because when you get 40 as a man, it's or
I'm
you
there.
buy
I'm almost there.
Okay, so or you buy a Porsche, or you want a Rolex,
Yeah.
or it's all those things where you need something to spice it up.
Yeah.
Okay, because I believe at 40 years old, most of us, you kind of cruising in life. I mean, the first 20 years you have to climb the ladder, but to a point you're cruising, and before you keep going up, there's a little of a mid level. I was there, so I needed something to spice it up, and I wanted something crazy, and I was thinking I should do that on what I know. So helicopters. So what am I gonna do? And I was thinking, okay, I can land on the Everest, the highest mountain. And then when I tried to explore that, it was so complicated because the top of the Everest, it's claimed between Tibet and the Chinese, and everybody is like, it's mine, it's not yours. Nepal and Tibet, and it was so complicated politically to
Yeah.
get permission, and the helicopter manufacturer were not helping me at all. They were not interested. And then I'm thinking, okay, fuck that. I'm going to go the highest I can go. And I contacted the guy that had the previous record. He's another French guy. He was 72 years old back then. And I said, can you tell me your story? He explained to me everything that he went through. And then I said, I think I can do this. and then it took me 2 years. I got the idea in 2000. And then in 2002 in March, I did it. And it was crazy. Did you read that piece in the book?
I got to a little bit of it, but no, I didn't fully read it. But I was reading on your, it was on your website, or it was on a link that I read.
On the website, yeah.
On your website, yeah.
On the website there's a story, but in the book, it's the first time that I go into details of what happened on the way up, but especially on the way down. And it was 4 minutes, the longest in my life. But you should read that part because it's.
I will.
I think you're gonna feel the stress that I went through. There's so many things that happen in that descent. You should read that part because I'm pretty proud of that piece in the book.
Cool. No, I'll read it tonight. No, I just thought I always think it's fascinating when people like world records, like even like when they used to have that Guinness Book World Record show. I just think it was so fascinating when people are like, "This is what I'm gonna." Obviously, this is something up your alley. This is something you do for a living and a passion that you have. So I just thought it was so wild to think of that. Just the fact that I was, when I fly in a plane, they usually go at the most like 42,000 for 42,000 feet, and you did that in a helicopter, which is.
It was crazy, and then it was crazy, and the fact that it's a mental process. So the thing is, to me, the record was more, okay. If I'm 40 years old, I need to prove to myself that I'm still capable to challenge myself in a big way. Because the problem is, more you go into life, you go into comfortability. You say that in English?
Yeah, you got it.
And then you get too comfortable. And then if you get comfortable, you're not gonna improving because you just go to that cruising mode.
Yep.
So I needed something to make sure that I didn't lose any of my, taking a risk. And like to keep moving forward. And then to me was a mental exercise. It's not about the record itself. It's just, am I capable to make a decision to do something and then do it? Because there's so many reasons to not do something like that. So many. In fact, 99.9% is like, don't do that, And everyone I spoke to said, don't even try, So it had to prove myself. So that was one of the reasons of the world record. And but it was really for me. There was no way I could be a disappointment to myself.
Yeah.
So I went through that, and it was complicated because just to get the counter pressure jacket, because when you go to a certain altitude, and because the cabin of the helicopter is not pressurized, the air into your lungs expand.
Yeah.
And then you can die of, blood. Basically, your lungs explode and everything, and then you die. So you need a counter pressure jacket. But just to find that counter pressure jacket that works with the air regulator to send the airflow to the inflatable jacket to press down your lungs without you can breathe. I had to buy that on the Russian black market.
Oh my God!
Because there's no way, like nobody wanted to sell me that to do a world altitude record. Do not have the liability. Just to find that stuff, it's very hard, And so anyway, it took a while. Took me 2 years. I did some training and everything, and off we go. And in the book, I'm explaining the whole complex, things that happened. And the descent was a fucking wild, crazy.
I'm going to read it tonight because I think it's so fascinating. Now, in the last 21 years, has anybody reached out to you about that record to trying to do it?
A few guys told me, I'm considering it, and I said, you know what, my equipment is there if you want to have it.
Oh wow!
No, I mean, give it back, but you can use it. But I just told them you need a gigantic pair of balls. I said, make sure whatever you do, you have a gigantic pair of balls that they're so big you can't even sit on it. Because I'm telling you, I said, when I read my book, even now I can see the stress, everything I went through. Like today, I don't think I'm mentally ready. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it again. But you know what I mean? It took a lot of mental strength. And after I did that, it was because I had a breakdown. So on the way down, you'll see I had a physical breakdown, and I cried for 45 minutes after the landing. Basically, I was a wreck. I basically hit my threshold as a person. And, before the world record, I had not too much empathy for people that had a breakdown, because I was seeing that as a weakness. Instead of after that happened to me, and I had a nervous breakdown, I know I hit my threshold, and then I can't judge anyone when they have a nervous breakdown, because you don't know how complicated it was for that person to get where he is, and who am I to judge that just looking at the person now? So that 45 minutes of nervous breakdown, if you read the book, you're going to see, and you will understand why I had that. But it was so much pressure, not internal pressure, self-induced pressure to take, that it just exploded to a point. And it's good too, it needs to get out of your system. It's like crying; it has to get out of your system.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot on the strengths, the challenge, the mental effort, what you fight yourself to achieve what you want to do. It's all those things that was good with the world record.
That's great. No, that's so cool. Because you grew, obviously, you achieved that goal, but you grew kind of emotionally. You did something that you didn't expect. You looked at differently before that. No, that's
1000%.
Yeah.
I had no clue. When I started to do it, for me, it was just, I'm just going to fly up and descend. You have those concept of doing something, but man, that was not. I mean, we know in life it's never like that.
Yeah.
But it was way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Wow.
Way harder.
So Fred, I always love whenever it's when I talk to stunt coordinators, or I talk to this guy that was a Hollywood bug wrangler, what goes into filming a scene. So when a director, say Michael Bay, comes up to you and says, hey, how does that even start? Is it on a storyboard? Does he take a flight with something to show you what he wants? How does that go?
So usually, I get 2 phone calls. Okay, it can be from a director, 8 or a year, 9 months, 6 months before we're gonna do the show, or a producer. So usually, if it's a producer, it just needs a budget. So we don't go into the creative part at all. You just tell me, Fred, that's the script we have. It's not gonna be the exact one, but this is the script. Just send me a price. How much going to be the budget? Because I have 2 jobs in that Hollywood industry. I do what we call aerial coordinator, and the aerial coordinator is doing budget, is finding the aircraft, putting the crew together, is involved in the permit process, where we're going to do this and everything, and then you give that to the production. And then the film pilot, a stunt pilot, that's when we do the show. So I do the 2 jobs. So when the producer is calling me, it's more about the aerial coordination part.
Yeah.
But if the director is calling me, it's more the film pilot part. And usually when they're telling me, they say, okay, I'm going to send you the piece of the script or the script. Tell me if what I wrote or what I need to direct is feasible. And what do you think? So usually it's an exchange like that. Sometimes they're not asking me it's feasible because it's something pretty simple, but they want to know how we're going to do it. But sometimes, Extraction 2, where I land on a moving train. Originally, Sam Hargrave, when he called me, he said, Fred, I want to do the most bitching helicopter and train sequence we've ever seen. So now he's telling me that. He's like, what can we do to make that happen? And I'm trying to remember all the movies I've seen with helicopter and train and see what did they do. And then he said, I want you to come with 3 helicopters attacking the train, and one is going above the train at 60 miles an hour, and 5 guys were rappelling down to the train. That's what he said at the beginning. And then I said, well, that's been done. I mean, I was not sure, but to me that was nothing. Yeah, it's cool, but I said, why we don't land the helicopter on the train instead of do the rappelling? We land, and then the 5 guys get out, and then he said, really, you can do that? And I said, yes, but I had no clue. Okay? Because I've never done that before. Yeah. I had the gut feeling that I can do it, but I don't know. If I'm telling you, if you take 2 cars at 100 miles an hour on the freeway, can you go from one car to another? Yeah, I think I can. But you know what I mean? You don't know until you do it.
Yeah.
And then there's plenty of problems that you didn't think about. The 2 cars won't be. So anyway, I told him, yeah, you can. And then he said, okay, great. So then the problem is from that point, now he's building the sequence like that. And me, I don't hear about anything for 3-4 months. Then the studio signed off on that story, and then they put the money. Now the producer called me and said, Fred, I need a budget. Now nobody's questioning, is it possible?
Yeah.
Give me the budget for it. Everything is going to motion. Now I'm starting to panic a little bit. So in the book, I'm explaining all that, everything that went through my mind, like from the beginning to the end, like going through those moments of doubt, how I'm going to do it, like, shit, the train is way more narrow than I thought it was. It's more narrow than the width of the helicopter. So I cannot land the damn thing on it. There's no space to put the skid.
Yeah.
And then if I land sideways, I may flip around. Like the air will flip me around, and I say, that's not going to work. And I'm just, trying, everything goes to my mind. But it's an exercise in there because we can't practice. I speak with my team, we go over the details, but they said, and at the end I'm thinking, okay, so I have to put one skid on the roof, the other skid outside of the train, and the 5 guys get out. Well, easy to say. Now you have 1,000 pounds of 5 guys going from one side to another, so the helicopter may flip too. So anyway, all that stuff. Then, I send the budget to the production. We're supposed to do it on whatever day is. And then they're asking me, so how much practice do you need? And then I said, again, I have no fucking idea. What do I know? I never landed on a train. So it's a process, So I just envision, okay, I'm going to need 7 days in my mind, thinking day 1, I practice with the stuntman, and day 2 and day 3. And then they ask me, but we don't have the train for 10 days to practice. Not easy to find a rail track with no wires.
Yeah.
You need a diesel locomotive, not a electric train like you have today. And then they're telling me, by the way, the rail track that we have, you only have 22 seconds to do it because there's trees on each end. So you have 22 seconds. So it's another
hurdle, yeah.
Boom. Right. So I said, okay, that doesn't help me. Because in my mind, the whole thing was going to be 45 seconds. In my mind. So anyway, it's all those things that come your way. It's like in life. Shit comes one after the other, and you have to, And so it just, you have to convince that you can do it. You have to be convinced that you need that confidence in yourself that you can go over all the issues. So I just told them, look, we don't have the train. So what I need is a decommissioned runway, like a long runway, but it's like a decommissioned one. And then I need a flatbed truck, put the train container on that flatbed truck, and let me practice, on it. So we put cars in the 22 seconds, like if it was the trees. And then I was practicing in the 22 seconds. So we did it 20 miles an hour, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way to 80 miles an hour. And at the end, we told them, 60 is the best speed. And that's how we practiced. And if you look on my Instagram, a few weeks ago, I put a post where you can see a truck and I'm flying sideways in front of it.
Okay.
That's the truck.
Oh, cool.
That's the truck. So anyway, that's how, so I have to come up with ideas for the training. I have to come up with that stuff because we don't have like when we do a stunt sequence like downtown Los Angeles, I can't practice in the city.
Yeah.
I have to practice somewhere else. And then on the day, I have to be very efficient. So to give you an idea on Extraction 2, I practiced for 10 days. I maybe landed on that damn truck maybe 80 times, 100 times. But when we did it on the day to shoot it, we did it twice. So it's just so in the book, I'm going through the whole motion, all my moment of doubt. And it was freezing temperature. We had no doors. It was minus 6 degrees Celsius.
Oh my God.
Which is very cold. It's like 20 or something. So your hands, you're cold, it just, so anyway, just stuff like that.
That's crazy. What was like a budget? Obviously that seems like super involved, but like, what is like, it's gotta be just the way you just explained everything that was, it seems like that has to be like double digit in the millions, right?
It was, I think the whole train sequence, everything with us was like 5 million.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah. But who gives a shit?
No, if it looks cool and it's real, like I'd rather see that than it's when it's like in a green screen,
No, of course, it's production value.
Yeah.
To me, of course, it has to be the right price because in life you need You need fairness in the value of things.
Oh yeah, you don't want to cut corners or anything,
No, but if the money you pay is correct and then it's expensive, it's okay because the audience will see the difference, and then you can. It's a trailer moment. It's the audience will say those guys did it for real. So the audience, they want authenticity, So I love when directors are okay to go all the way for authenticity, for the real things. I'm always fighting hard to do everything for real as much as I can. I will open my mouth, and that's something I've learned through the years of being in LA and in America, working for Hollywood and all that stuff, is if you have an idea, speak up. Did you read the part in the book when I do the Steve Wynn commercial?
No, I didn't get to that now.
You're going to have a blast.
All right, cool.
Because I opened my mouth.
Steve Wynn, like the Wynn casinos, the Vegas casinos? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's a character,
was his hotel. So that happened. I was just in America for a few years. It's in the book, and I explained the whole thing in details. You're gonna laugh.
Sweet.
But you have to understand, for me as a French person, Steve Wynn is like if you say hello, it's John Smith.
Oh, I bet. The guy is.
But he called me on the phone. The guy called me on the phone directly. Hey, Fred, I'm Steve Wynn. I said, to me, he can be a guy selling insurance. I don't know. And then he told me, I have an hotel in Las Vegas. I get my attention, but you don't know if it's a spam or whatever.
Or it could be like a little dumpy hotel. You don't know.
Right. I don't know, like a shitty hotel. But he said, I built the hotel and the casino, and we just did a commercial, and the Orioles were bad, and somebody gave me your name. So can I send you my jet and go to Santa Monica Airport in 20 minutes to pick you up? I said, send me a jet? I said, sure. Like whatever plan you have, As a French person, coming like a jet to go to a movie job, you have to understand, in Paris, I had to go on a scooter. To go to it's not the same scale. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so anyway, it's in the book, but I had to open my mouth and just quickly so your audience can get a bite of what it is. I got to his office. That is a huge room. And you can see Las Vegas view is amazing. And in the room, you have Steve Wynn is sitting on the left side of that huge table. And he's sitting on the left with his two dogs. And the dogs, they're like Greek statue, like they're huge and they don't move. So it's like awkward. And then there is a big empty gap in the table. And then at the other end of the table, there's 10 people. And they were from the New York agency, the advertising agency. And they were sitting there. I'm sitting there. And remember, my English is Z minus, not, like I used to say, B plus, B minus. And then he's showing me what they just shot, which, was pretty around the hotel, but there was nothing specific. And I can tell that guy has an ego the size of like the Empire State Building. Yeah. And rightfully so. I mean, he's successful and he built hotel and casino. I mean, it's an amazing career. And I'm thinking, and then he said, so, what do you suggest we do to have my hotel? And I'm thinking for a second, I said, Mr. Wynn, would you have the balls to go on top of your building, because it's 600 feet up? Would you have the balls to go on top of the building edge, and you're just standing there, and me with the helicopter, I will be 10 feet from your face, and with the camera on the helicopter, will be zooming into your face. You will introduce your hotel, but we don't know where you are. And then I'm gonna descend down like this, and you're gonna go. Basically, it says pull down, and we're gonna see going towards the sky with your hotel like a god, and you'll introduce your hotel like that. And he looked at me, and thinking, because I was hesitant to say it.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get fired and because I'm French and the way I say, do you have the balls? It's with my accent. I think I can say different things than an American person.
Yeah. It doesn't come out as harsh. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't sound that hard because you're thinking loss of translation, whatever the fuck it is. It's not, So, and it is a little bit because in France we'll say, we'll say it, not necessarily to a CEO, but you'll say it. So anyway, he looked to the advertising agency and he said, so he doesn't think anything to me. He said, you, and you're fired, get the fuck out. So those 10 people now walk out. So now I'm thinking, shit, And then he looked at me and he said, I do have the balls. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So in the book, there's a QR code at the end. When I tell that story, you can take your phone and then put the
Cool.
QR code. And you can see the Steve Wynn commercial, and you're going to see him, and you're going to see me going down, and you can see the helicopter in the reflection of the building. And that's the commercial that I put on the QR code, so you can see
Sweet.
exactly everything I'm telling you now. So anyway, don't hesitate to speak up. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Wow. Now you've done so many stunts, in your career. Was there ever a time that you did feel, obviously you need to feel comfortable just like but was there any time that you're like, I don't know if I could do this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's like sometimes it's like, I don't know why, why am I here? Like, why putting myself? Because it's me putting myself there. It's
Yeah.
like, why am I doing this for what? It's stupid, because when you think about it at the scale of life, I'm always trying to think at the scale of life. I take a depth, because if the shit is right there, it's not the same perspective than if it's far away. So I'm trying to think at the end of my life what I would remember, what I will, have gratitude for. And I'm thinking I'm kind of stupid to take so much risk, all that stuff. But that's just for a few seconds. And then rapidly I'm thinking, stop that stuff.
Yeah.
Now go back to protocol, go to the plan. You don't deviate from the plan. Let's do as planned and what we trained for. You need to achieve this. There's so many people relying on you. And remember, I'm really trying at the end of the day to create an emotion with the audience. I'm trying to do things for real. I want the director to be super happy. I want everybody to be proud of what we did. And the good thing with movie work is it's a team effort. Like everybody is in it, and you can see your work on screen forever.
Yeah.
And you can show it to your family, to your friends forever. There's not that many jobs. I mean, you have podcasts, so you do the same thing. You can show what you do on screen, but there's not that many jobs where you can have 700 people working together for a year, and then you can see the result on the screen. It's pretty cool. So I need to be proud of that. And that's one of the reasons I push myself. Even today, I'm working on some movies right now. It's like for next year, it's like, fuck, how I'm going to do it.
You still fly, right?
Oh, of course I do all the time. Yeah. I just did, 6 months ago, Beverly Hills Cops 4.
Oh, nice. For Netflix, yeah.
And we did some crazy stunt flying in there. One of the most complicated sequence I've done in my life. When you're going to see it, you'll remember what I'm telling you. It's like crazy shit.
They filmed that in LA?
In LA, downtown LA.
Sweet.
Like crazy crap. Like there's no way you're going to think it's for real.
Yeah, I saw it on your YouTube. You had some cool clips. One was you filming. I always forget that ravine, the ravine in LA, the famous one where it's in a million movies, but it's all like grayed out and there's like a little bit of water. There's always chase scenes in it. But you put a clip on your YouTube 2 years ago, and it was like, it was so cool looking. Just the fact to take a helicopter under those bridges, to me, that's just like.
Yeah.
To just think of that, it's wild. Because even though...
No, it was the LA River.
LA River, yeah. So, the fact that, obviously, you know what you're doing. You know the depth, from where you're sitting, probably to the top of the blade. So you have that idea. But just watching that, just thinking, it's crazy.
The thing is, it's like if you drive a car and you go to a parking place that is tight, but you fit.
Yeah.
You do. The only difference between that and me in the helicopter is if I make a mistake, I die.
Yeah.
And in the car, you're just going to wreck it. But it's the same idea. The only difference is the weight on your shoulder as far as the liability goes, your life, the people's life. But it's the same. You fit. There's no data. There's no thing. You just look at it and you fit. So it's the same for me.
Yeah.
I just need to be solid up there.
Yeah. No, it's just crazy to think about. Just the flying aspect under things, and I just think the proximity when you're near other helicopters or other planes or that close to actors like Charlize Theron, and right? Weren't you super close to her in a shot? Because she had a really cool quote too.
We did Old Guards 2 with her.
Oh,
and the movie's not out yet.
Okay.
And we did some crazy stuff with her. She had I told her, you have a gigantic pair of balls. You do. And she said, I'm taking that as a compliment. I said, yes, it is.
Yes.
But I said, really? She was amazing to work with. She was super nice. She was listening. And with her, when we started to do the, and I can't tell you too much because the movie is not out yet, but
Yeah.
technically we're supposed to do 95% with a stunt double and 5% with the buck. So 5% with her in helicopter, sorry. She was going to do 95% on the buck on stage. And then with the stunt double, I was going to do 95%. And I've asked if I could have a moment with her one-on-one because there's an entourage and everybody has an idea. I said, can I just have a moment with you one-to-one? And she said, yes. A lot of actors says no. I said, I'm going to send you my assistant. And then what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
even if it's a nice person, but what I'm going to do. So we sat down with her. We spoke for an hour and a half. And I told her, because she was worried about helicopters. She was afraid about helicopters for all the things we know, Kobe Bryant accident and this and that. And so all those, famous things. And then I told her, I said, I'm a family man. I have a wife. I have 2 cats. I have 3 kids. I have my life. I love my life. I said, I'm not a person that a cowboy and a reckless guy. I said, I will take care of you like my family, You have to trust me that we need to do this sequence for real. There's no way you can do everything you're planning to do on a fucking buck. It's like, no, you have to do it. And she said, okay, explain it to me. And I explained it to her. And then she said, okay. So then she called the producer on the phone. And then she told them, that's what we're going to be doing. Then I got a phone call from them. What the fuck, are you insane? And I said, it's for the show. Like, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then after we did the sequence, and Charlie's, was fantastic. Like, she was telling Fred, more. And I said, no, that's good. We've done crazy shit. Like, she was into it. And it was so much fun. That's why she, in the endorsement that she made, she talked about the trust.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's what's big. I think that's
you know.
why you are the go-to guy, because people trust you,
Yeah, but it's I told her it's a challenge, and yes, there's a risk because we go up in the air, and there's unknown, but we'll control that risk. We'll make it safe, and let's do some crazy shit. That's what we do. Movie, let's do crazy shit, because if we only do comfortability, green screen, audience, they know.
Yeah.
You can't fool the audience. They don't understand exactly what it doesn't work, but it's not working. You know what I mean? They want authenticity. So I'm convinced of that. And that's what, basically what I've been doing the past 8 years. I'm pushing hard to do the real deal,
Fred, this has been awesome, man. Anybody, I'll put the episode in the episode notes. I'll put the link to your website where you have all the links to buy the book.
Yeah.
Fred-north.com. It's Flying Sideways, the story of the world's most famous stunt pilot. Fred, it was great talking to you, man.
Yeah, me too, Doc. Thank you so much. And read the other half.
I'm gonna. Appreciate it, man.
It's a fun book. Thank you so much, Doc.
Hey,
Take
no
care.
problem. Have a great rest of your night. Fred was amazing. So many things going back that I mentioned in the intro, like his determination to get that Canadian flying license, which is unreal. The story about Gerard Butler and him talking to him 45 minutes about the book, and just so cool because it's trust. It's all about trust with Fred, and that's why so many people want to work with him. And if it's like Charlene's the first time that she worked with him, then she wanted to keep working with him because of that trust that he was able to build. Fred was awesome. Thank you, Fred, again. Flying Sideways, the story of the world's most famous stunt pilot. You buy it at fred-north.com. I'll also put it in my episode notes. Lots of fun. So next week, Taken 3. It's going to be fun to cover a Liam Neeson movie. The first time we were 1 2 a few years ago, but there was another sequel that we were wanting to do a little bit more for DB Sweeney when we talked to him a few years back. So, yeah. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.